Man, it's stuffy in my room. Sorry if you guys hear the fan in the background. I try to not hopefully it won't be too obvious, but I have a feeling it probably will be. But it's like 80 degrees or more outside and I can't stand it because I got the hottest room in the entire apartment. But anyway, enough about that. What's going on, guys? It is I, Cooper88, also known as Steve. And I kind of felt like doing a vlog. I've been waiting most of the day because I was on call from my workplace and they haven't called me yet. So more than likely, I have a feeling nobody's going to call out today. They pretty much have shortened my week to just 2 days, which I'm fine with. But today has been kind of a day where I've kind of sat back and I've let me see if I can face away from the fan for a moment. Because I'm facing towards my oscillating fan and I kind of don't want background. You'll probably hear it in the background, but I don't want the heavy whooshing to be like right here. Ugh, excuse me. But I kind of wanted to talk to you guys today about, well, I don't know. I felt like doing a vlog and I figured today I would, talk about a couple of things. Mainly, I did laugh at a lot of you guys' comments on my New Orleans travel blog. Comments, a lot of people, roasting me and making, neckbeard comments, and maybe I need to hold the camera a little bit higher. I don't know if I already covered this or not, but the reason I had it down here like this is because if I had it like this, there were people around me, both at the hotel and as I was walking around Bourbon Street, so I kind of didn't want to put anybody on camera that didn't want to, because a lot of people get really offensive and upset about that, and it's just not a good look. Kind of like my hair over here. I swear my hair has a mind of its own. I just wet the thing down and combed it and it just doesn't go anywhere. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, why are you growing like a goatee? Or why are you growing all this out? I like having facial hair. Not super thick facial hair, but a 5 o'clock shadow. I don't like being clean shaven. It's just too much work to maintain for one, and two, it just doesn't sit well with me. It just makes me look weird. Makes me look like somebody Chris Hansen should be catching. If you catch my drift. But I don't know, I've been thinking a lot the last week or so about different things that have been going on in my life. Obviously my mother's divorce, me coming back from New Orleans, and now kind of dealing with it setting in that it's going to be a long time before I do another trip like that. And just in general trying to pick up whatever pieces of my life I possibly can. And you're going to be like, well, that's kind of overly dramatic, Steve. What do you mean by picking up the pieces of your life? I mean, getting back to where I was before all this stuff happened. Last year or so. And it's very difficult mindset to get into. And that's part of the reason I want to do this blog, is I want to encourage people on the idea of do something every day. Just out of the blue, just something. Something sporadic. Make your bed. Try a new food. Just something new and something different every day. It could be learning a Snapple fact. But I feel like if you learn something new every day, something positive related, it starts to snowball, and it starts to either snowball or it starts to keep a positive effect on your mind. Or maybe you find something funny. Because I woke up this morning And I kind of woke up in a bit of a, slumpish mood. I had no energy. I didn't, still kind of just felt very tired and depressed and, just irritated with how, last week went and, etc. and so forth. So I thought, okay, what's something new I can try today? What's something new that I can learn today? Just so that way I can have at least say that if the day doesn't go the way I want it to, at least one good thing happened from it. And of course, I did learn a couple of interesting related facts. Me being a wrestling fan, I learned about some of the past jobs that some of my favorite wrestlers and whatnot had or past, like, occupations that they had. Like, anybody who's a fan of her, WWE wrestler Asuka used to be a graphic designer, and she owned a beauty salon and used to write for the Japanese branch of Xbox magazine. Like, stuff like that, if you learn it, even if it's not relevant to you or your friends, it's the idea of motivating you to do something, or see something, or figure out something, or just have the mental mindset of, what, it's like, I'm gonna do something I like today. So for me, I'm getting caught up on wrestling. Always puts me in a good mood. I've been trying to get everything figured out. I need to get back on my laptop, because I figured if I'm not getting called in all this week, I might as well just try and get back into writing, or at least the semblances of it. So I've started digging out all my books again, refreshing my memory, and hopping to it. And it's so funny because this is something I kind of want to get into. I keep talking about how I need to get back into writing, and I keep looking at all these writing type things, but I have no passion lately to want to, pursue, like, open anthology submissions. And I've only got one comic to my name. Maybe a second one might come out, maybe it won't. For Darkest Night from Hooligan Alley. But ultimately, I've kind of gotten to this place as I've gotten older, and maybe this is just me getting older, but I've gotten into this mindset where, I've reached 30, I've kind of had, to me, very minimal success personally, but I've had a lot of positive experiences. And that's kind of very interesting, at least in the way that I kind of dissect that. I've met a lot of interesting people, done a lot of interesting things, good things, awesome things that most people would never be able to do in their lives, or would get the chance to. That's not me being a braggart, that's just me throwing that out there. And yet, my desire to succeed kind of negates all that. And I had to really kind of sit down and self-examine, okay, what is really eating away at me? Well, I finally figured out what that is. See, it's not just from the fact that I was bullied so much as a kid and people not believing in me and thinking that I would never succeed that kind of fuels that, but I think it's a self-desire that because I believed all that, now I have to try to play catch up as I'm getting older. And it becomes increasingly frustrated because I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels in my life. And rather than feeling like I need to put in the work and be 50 or 60 and battered, broken, crippled, etc. before I finally have, that, epiphany, that moment of self-satisfaction, that I need to get caught up on all of it. And that's a very powerful notion when you think about that. That you do all these cool things, you meet all these cool people, and it's not that you take it for granted, but it's the fact that you have such a strong desire to succeed that all of that seems smaller. You negate it sometimes. You get stuck in your own head. And the irony of that is that you think that you're trying to get out of spinning your wheels in your life, but yet the poetic irony is in trying so hard to do that, you end up spinning your wheels more. Now, some of y'all are going to look at me and be like, okay, that doesn't make sense, Steve, but really it does, and let me explain. I saw a quote recently that I saved to my phone, and it made a lot of sense when I thought about the context, because at first I was confused when I read this. And I can't quote it, word for word, but I'll tell you what it means. 2 things about my life personally. 2 things that I think will help y'all. First, the quote that I had read had an interesting point to it. The more you seek to satisfy yourself, the more cold, miserable, and alone you're going to be. Other part of that quote is, the more you have a strong desire to want to succeed, the more you're going to fail and be set back. The more you try to be happy and find joy, the more you're going to make those around you miserable, and in turn, keep wanting to be more satisfied with yourself. Now, it sounds very backwards, right? That's because this is part of what I think they call the backwards theory or backwards logic theory. Something like that. I'd have to look the quote back up on my phone. I collect a lot of motivational quotes and people laugh at me about that. They're like, why do you need motivational quotes? It's not that I need them for a pick-me-up, but I get them. But I like the motivational quotes that make you think either outside the box or make you think outside yourself. Because sometimes self-examination, true self-examination, is the real aphrodisiac for wanting to grow as a person. And I started to think about that. And I thought, I struggle so much with wanting to be successful, with either wanting to be a writer, a let's player. At this point, I don't care. I just want to get out of mediocrity and get out of what I feel is working the 9-to-5 average Joe shift, because my fear is that I'm letting all the intelligence, all the talent, all the things that I know I have about myself in confidence now that I wished I had took a grasp of years ago, and I feel like now it's just crumbling and going to waste, and that I pretty much feel like I have a new lease on life, but I feel like that lease is come a little bit too late. At least some days. And that kind of bothers me a lot. It really does. But when I read that quote, I'm like, in a backwards way, that describes a lot of the mindset that I went through and still go through, that I struggle with sometimes. It's the idea of wanting so badly to succeed that you're, in a sense, sacrificing yourself, and you're sacrificing those around you and becoming a toxic person, and you're not even aware of it because you're so driven into wanting to succeed and wanting to make a name for yourself, and wanting to save up all this money to do all these cool things, and yada yada yada, etc., etc. And that's when I kind of had to really stop and think to myself, what am I really contributing to the world? Am I contributing misery or positivity? And that's when it dawned on me that, the people around me like being around me, but they don't like when I become so compulsive, so driven, so self-centered. Because I will admit, I'm a self-centered person. I'm not ashamed to admit that. It's something I'm still working on myself for. Because like I said, I have a strong desire to want to try to succeed, but I don't feel like I need to keep jumping through hoops. And there's the problem right there. I'm willing to jump through some of the hoops, but I'm not willing to jump through all of the hoops. Therein lies not only my problem, but a lot of people's. Is quick success, but on the backs of those unconsciously or subconsciously on the backs of those that are trying to be reasonable and realistic and telling you that, some of these things are a gamble and that you need patience. So, second thing was I had a mentor of mine. This was, I want to say, 2-3 years. By the way, I'm rocking back and forth. This isn't the camera. So 2 or 3 years ago, I had a kind of mentor. I consider him a mentor. I don't know if Wilson was his actual last name, but, he was a deacon. So Deacon Wilson, we'll just call him that. And I think I've told this before, but I'll tell it to those who haven't heard about it. And he said it more to me like as a man, but this applies to anybody. It's not just young men, but it's, this can apply to women or to, POCs, trans, etc. It doesn't matter. Just anybody from any walk of life. But he looked at me and he said, Steve, he said, I'm going to tell this to future you. Not to present you, because I think I was 21 at the time. Like 21, 22. And he said, Steve, he said, I'm telling this to future you. He said, every man has his own kingdom. And every man can build his own kingdom. But he cannot take over the kingdoms of other men or people around him. What? I mean, it didn't make sense. It does now that I'm older. He said, every man builds his own kingdom and every man builds his own castle differently. He said, just keep that in mind. He goes, trust me, years down the road, it'll make sense to you why I say that. And I just looked at him like he was crazy. Because what did he mean by that? Years later, I finally understand what he's talking about. Every person builds their own castle. They build the foundations for who they are as an individual. And the legacy, whether they have children or it's passed on through family, etc., everybody has a legacy that they want to pass down. Your kingdom is your legacy. Your castle is the foundations for who you are and who you choose to be in life. And sometimes, like any castle, you'll get sieged, you'll get invaded. Your villages will be burned and pillaged. And of course, self-reflection. It's attacks on your personal being. It's things in life that bring you down. It's deaths in your family. Like, really traumatic stuff. So, okay. What do you do when these things happen? You learn to cope, adapt, and move on, possibly. Or you at least learn to make peace that things happened the way that they happened. Same thing with kingdoms. You till the farms again. You rebuild the villages. You brick and mortar the towers that got destroyed on your castle. And you reinforce them. You make them better than they were. that's pretty much Steve's lesson of the day, or Steve's vlog of the day, whatever you want to call it, or the week or the month, whatever you want to call it. But that's just something that I felt that I had to not only get off my chest, but I felt like it's something that was important to talk about, is the fact that I still struggle with wanting to be successful. And it's not even just on this main channel, it's on my gaming channel that mainly sparked this. Because I feel like a lot of the times I'm spinning my wheels with these Let's Plays, with these Twitch streams. And I feel like I'm grasping at straws, you know, with wanting to get back into writing, but having no desire or oomph to want to sit down at my laptop and write. I'm essentially, in my mind, I'm like, well, everything should come to me. I shouldn't go to it. And that's wrong. That's a wrong mindset to have. But as I sat here and I've kind of not done anything, it just kind of became like a self-aware moment of like, you know, I have an opportunity in front of me, but I also understand that self-care is important. So in my head, I'm like, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. I got to get this out. But then the mature adult part of me, the rational part, is like, you know what? Take a day, maybe two. If you get called into work, you get called into work. If you're successful, you're successful. If you lose a little bit of money, it's no skin off your nose. You're not financially broke. It's all about checks and balances within your own life. And that's important. So always keep that in mind, guys. Everything seems worse, and there are going to be bad moments in your life. But as cheesy and as much of an eye-rolling moment as it is for a lot of y'all, things, like a pendulum, they do swing the other way. It's just a lot of them may take a long while. It may just be wrong place, wrong moment, might not be the right time. Who knows? But I'm a firm believer that, you know, you have to try to make the most of whatever your days are, and you have to make the most of whatever opportunities you're given. Even if you never take those opportunities, at least humor thinking about taking advantage of them, or at least looking into them. And I guarantee you, it'll give you a little bit more peace of mind. Not much, but at least a little bit, guys. So, some food for thought. So, take care, guys. I hope y'all have a good one. Have a good evening. And, you know, day, evening, night, whichever part of the globe you're watching this from. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one.